Welcome to the She Build Show. I'm your host, Stefanie Olson, a licensed general contractor who builds new construction, renovates, and designs your vision. Today, more than ever, we need raw, authentic women who are willing to rise above society's norms, break those glass ceilings, and encourage each other to boldly build the life we were meant to live. So, honey, what are you building? All right, welcome to the She Build Show. I have an incredible guest today. Her name is Kelly Ireland, and you are from Pennsylvania, right?
I am. Philadelphia area, Pennsylvania.
Awesome. Well, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Of course. Okay, so I know you by like your Instagram handle, which is Tiny Plumber Girl, right? So you're in the plumbing trade, and I'm just like so curious because I feel like plumbers are kind of like good plumbers are like unicorns. Like they just don't exist very often. And like quality plumbers and people who like do what they're supposed to do. And I'm always terrified of anything like I sub out all my plumbing because I'm just like I don't want the liability of something leaking because like I've had houses flood and I've had all things go wrong. So how did you get into plumbing? How did this come about?
Really, I fell into it because I was sick of working in like the restaurant industry. We were trying to get my kid's father in, and my father's a retired union plumber. So naturally we would get the man to become a plumber if you're looking for like good stability career for like the family. And so that's what we did. And he loves the restaurant industry. I hated the restaurant industry. He skipped application process and I just went. I was like, well, if you're not going to do it, I'm just going to do it. Like I had quit nursing school. I'm not going back to nursing school. I knew I didn't want to be a nurse. And so I just did it on a whim and ended up loving it. Like,
really? That's crazy. So, well, obviously you knew like what your dad did, but did you go, so tell me like a little bit about your journey. Did you go to like an apprenticeship program or how did you get in? Like, what is the rules there?
So I actually worked with my dad as like summer help at a mechanical contracting office, and I like copied the blueprints and did like office work and not once ever considered that I could like be a plumber. Because I just never saw women do it. It wasn't like that I can't do it. It just was that the visibility, it just wasn't even an option. Like I had considered going into military, which I had no desire to do. The things I've considered over plumbing, it's crazy, but really it was like a lack of visibility. So I started my union apprenticeship in 2012. I didn't start working till 2013. I was the last of my class to go out naturally, being the only female.
Were you the only woman in your
yeah, so I was the first woman actually accepted and started my plumbing, started a plumbing apprenticeship in almost like 10 years of the union. Like the last female who went through the apprenticeship was 10 years in.
Holy moly.
Yeah, so it's not.
And how many men were, or just how many people were in that class? Like I was just curious of the size.
So classes average like 15 to 20. It really all depends, who shows up, who passes the drug test, yada yada. They average who passes the drug test, right?
That's pretty much weeding out a lot of people.
So I think our class started with 17 and I believe we graduated with 15 and I was the only female.
Okay.
And so
how long was the class? Like how long did it take to get your apprenticeship done?
So in Pennsylvania, apprenticeship is 4 to 5 years. The union does a full 5 years. And basically it was like the school year, we would go every other week, and we worked during school. So that was nice. And that's the nice thing about apprenticeship, is that like it's not just like dumping all this money into education without like hands-on experience. You get
Right.
that hands-on experience. Um, so they start putting people out to work, and it really depends on how work is in the city. Right now, work is starting to boom. So they're taking pre-apprenticeship people, like people who applied for the apprenticeship might get jobs before they actually start school.
Okay.
Um, I'm sorry.
I said, wow.
Yeah, so, and that's cool. Unfortunately for me, 2012 was not.
That was not the case.
Nope, not the case. It was severe unemployment at the time. And so apprentices will go out fast, especially younger apprentices, because we're cheap labor. But it took me, I guess I started school in September, and I didn't go out to work till January.
Okay.
So, and I was the last one in my class to
For
go out.
them to deploy
Yeah,
you to the work
yeah,
field. I'm sure for all kinds of reasons. What, so you completed your 5 years with the union, and
yeah,
if I can count right, or like
17.
2017?
Yeah. So, yeah, I did in 2017. I graduated, or journeyed out. So I got my journey's license early, before I actually finished my apprenticeship, and that's normal. Like most people will test out a year early. My class was a little bit behind, so we tested out like a few months early. Um, but I passed that. I think it was March of 2017, and then we graduated August of 2017.
Okay, and did you, so like going in, did you like still love it? I mean, obviously you're still doing it today, but were you just like, yes, this is where I'm supposed to be? Or were you like, this sucks and it's really hard and I'm committed and I'm still gonna do it and I'm gonna find a way? Like, what was the mindset during that time? Because I'm sure it was not easy being obviously the only woman, the last person to be put out to work. What was the like overall experience like?
So overall, I like my first job when I walked onto, so with union work, it was like large commercial construction work.
Right.
So I'm talking like 17 stories up, 50 stories up. And they just started giving me power tools and telling me to use them. And I'm like, what is this? Like, this is bigger than me, and I get to like break stuff with it. And that was super cool. Like, even menial things like, everybody hates, like, if you're a plumber, you don't want to core holes, you don't want to fire caulk, which is like caulking pipe penetrations through walls. You don't want to do like organized fittings. I mean, everything was so new to me. I never really went like working with my dad in the field. I
Right.
did work in the office, like summer times to help, but that was the really cool thing, was I just really was an open book, open to anything. So anyway, so I was an open book. I'm excited to learn. I'm excited to do everything. I loved it. I really loved it. My first foreman was like, keep that attitude, because anything he told me to do, I was like, okay, like, which tool do I get to use? What do I get to do? And so that was fun. I can't say it was always easy. There definitely some there were so many days where I just felt like the braid hanging out of my hard hat or ponytail was like I could be in a group of like 50 guys and everyone's on their cell phone. And if I like check the time, it's like, she's on her phone. And
Oh, really?
I'm
What?
like, well, they're all playing Candy Crush or like looking at porn or something crazy, like, I mean,
Right.
and seriously. And I was an apprentice, so I had to be on my phone to get break order. People would call you because mechanics just like abuse the apprentice, like go get my material, go do this, go. And because we have the cell phones, they're texting you. So all the time you're on your cell phone, it doesn't matter, and turn it off. And then you get in trouble by your mechanic. Like maybe you're
Right.
okay with the foreman, but or if the foreman can't get in touch with you, then he's like, why didn't you answer my call? And it's like, well,
You told me to get
so,
on my phone.
so it was really a tough thing to deal with. And I came from food industry, which I mean, was like really laid back in that
Right.
aspect. Not that it maybe necessarily should have been, but I just felt like always the braid. I'm like, it's the braid. Like it doesn't matter. I mean, maybe I wore a pink hoodie or something to stand out a little bit, uh, but I just felt like I was always a target. It didn't matter what I was doing. One time I was carrying material down to a different gang box, and I found out that the foreman thought I was stealing copper. Like,
Oh my gosh.
and just so like and people would tell me that, like, oh, the foreman thinks you're stealing copper. Then I feel like,
Even
so I
more nervous. Yeah, just
yeah,
constantly
and
trying to prove yourself.
exactly. And it happens with guys too. Like, I'm not
Right.
saying guys, if he's out of his place or whatever, that's like the rough life of being an
Being an
apprentice.
apprentice. Yeah, I think it's just like you're the new person and we're just gonna make your life
Yeah.
hell. What was like one of the most positive things that you experienced during that time?
Um, Really, it was honestly overcoming people's doubts. So there was always like, I'd walk on a job, I get the looks, right? I call the foreman before I walk on the job, and they're like, who is coming? Like, Kelly, the girl? Like, and so coming to a job, like a new job, my thing was always like, I'm just gonna show them, like,
Just
I
go to
don't
work.
even really have to work hard to show them because I loved what I was doing. So it was
Yeah.
easy to work hard. Um, but when I would watch someone who was skeptical of me and watch that like thought process change, that was always the most uplifting for me, especially like the
Absolutely.
old grumpy guys, the guys that everybody else was like, watch out for old man Pete, or
Yeah.
watch out for this guy, right? And then next thing I know, that's my partner, right?
Right.
So
I feel
pushing
the
them
same
out of,
way. It's kind of like once they get to know you and know that you're a person, you're not trying to like move anybody out, you're passionate about it and you want to learn and you want to work hard. I feel like you can gain respect as long as you're not disrespectful.
yeah, and that was what I found, especially like old man Pete is a real person for me, and he did not let me use tools, and he would not let me do things, and I'm like, you are the old man, I'm the young body. Your job is to teach me to move like you. And I would always say that. I'm like, I'm on your team.
Yeah.
Like, give me the tool. I'm on your team. And when he finally like, he's like, all right, kid, go do this. All right, kid. He actually called me Little Miss. He'd be like, Little Miss, which I loved, right? So it was like that was like when I got old man Pete to be like my best bud, people just couldn't, they're like, how? Why? Why do you
Yeah.
like old
What?
man Pete? I'm like, well, I work and I give him a break. And he's like, realize, because he was a hard worker, right?
Yeah.
It was hard for him to give up that control. But once he saw that like my dedication was there, I had the skill to do it. I did it well. I did it
Right.
up to his
He could
standard.
trust you.
Exactly. And that was always my goal, like was to make my partner feel like we're a team as opposed to competition. Because I
Right.
feel like the building trades gets very like layoffs, everybody is just cutthroat. And it's like a
Yeah.
man's world. Like it's like football without the ball, right? Like,
Yeah.
like everybody's fighting to be on the winning team, even if you're on the same team.
Right. Yeah, we're still enemies. Okay, so then tell me after you graduated and you got your journeyman license, what was like the next step after that? Did you go, continue working in the union? Do you still work in the union? What's your path after that?
So like working in the commercial construction, I worked for 4 contractors total. Um, 2 of them being larger contractors, and one of them being like a really huge contractor. Like I was on like the highest high rise, the biggest hospitals. And so I did that up until right before the pandemic. I got laid off. Um, so I got laid off right before the pandemic, which was, perfect time for a layoff because you're not getting a job.
Yeah.
So the first thing I did when I realized like, and it was before the pandemic. So I didn't have that pandemic fear of not getting a job at that point, but I like was coming to the realization that like I'm maybe not going to get a job right away. And so I went out and got my master's license right away because I thought like the more certifications I have, the more appealing I'll look.
Right.
Um, Problem is one contractor really only needs one master plumber, and if they already have them, they're not going to pay for 2 master plumbers because you only need one person to pull all your permits.
Got
So I found that
it.
out fast, because getting my master's license didn't get me jobs.
Okay.
So I get my master's license, then COVID does hit, and I just like I was already on unemployment, so it was fine. Went hiking with the kids, made arts and crafts, did all that. And
Right.
then people start calling me for drain cleaning. And so I bought myself a drain cleaner and just started drain cleaning. And I would have like little miscellaneous calls just from like family, friends. Um, so, as a commercial plumber, I didn't really know much about residential. I mean, I was drain cleaning. I mean, I might as well have been blindfolded. I really had no idea. I'm like, oh, I
Like,
popped a hole in the clog, drains. They call me a week later. They're like, my drains clogged again. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, what do I do? Right. So so then like I started diving into the Instagram community, sort of like to ask people like, what do I do next? And that's how it sort of developed. It went from drain cleaning, then everybody needed a new faucet because their faucet was 10 years old, and they went from using it 3 times a day to using it 50 times a day. Thank you,
right.
COVID, right?
Right.
And it just really trickled from there. So my COVID experience was not that of like the quarantine, or I mean, I had like a month where I was like hiking every day. And then it was, how do I turn my Jeep into a family car and a work car? And how do I fit these tools in here? And now my windshield smashed because I shoved a piece of pipe in there and it smashed the windshield. Like I just went through, and anybody starting on their own, like they all deal with that. I can't tell you how
Yes.
many plumbers, they're like, I have that same crack in my windshield from the same thing. So, and that was cool too, because honestly, like I wasn't alone going into residential. Like a lot of guys, and guys who had been 20 years in the union, guys who, had been master plumbers for a long time, like guys I looked up to did the same thing. All of a sudden they go into residential and they would actually, they're like, how much do you charge for this job? Or what do you do for this? And I'm like,
You're
you're
asking me?
asking me? I mean, and that was cool, like, because we built a community of people who were building their own business. And it, some of it didn't work out. And for some people, and for me, I lucked out. Like, I've had my own business since 2020.
That's
Um,
awesome. Okay, so you're doing full-time on your own, running your plumbing business. What's the name of it?
so it's TPG Mechanical, Tiny Plumber Girl. And And that was always because I was like, I just want to leave the option that if I want to go commercial or want to go like TPG Mechanical, obviously sounds more
Commercial,
professional
yeah,
in our
professional.
industry,
Yeah.
right, than Tiny Plumber Girl. And I was like, and who also, if I start hiring guys or girls, but like who wants to work for like, I'm sorry, you know what I'm saying? So I
Yes.
just like abbreviated, just like,
Yeah,
authors, female authors abbreviate their first name, just like that's what we do.
that's
But
perfect.
yeah, so that's what it's, so TPG Mechanical. And Yeah, I definitely like I had a mentor who like and he reached out via Instagram, which was awesome. Um and basically told me I was like, well, I'll just work for you because I did not want to start a business. I didn't go to business school. I have no idea how to manage books. I have no idea how to manage and I mean, I've worked in offices, but like
Yeah.
managing schedules, like I'm unorganized, Um, but he really like got me through all of that. Like I'm like, I can't figure out which button to push. And he's like, it's this one. And then I'm like, okay, now that excuse is done. So what's my next excuse? And he really just didn't let me give those excuses of like,
Right.
and really the excuse was my hesitation and my self-doubt. And so
Absolutely. And fear, I'm sure.
and fear. And so he just got me over all those humps
Oh,
and
that's
real I
awesome.
mean, I always like I certainly wouldn't be as far along like if it weren't for him.
Absolutely.
He
I was
really
actually just like telling that to one of the designers that works for me. Well, she has her own business, but I hire her out for various, drafting and interior design work. And she's getting to the point where she's so busy, not just with my work, but other people's work. And I was like, she's like, how did you learn all of this stuff? And I'm like, well, one, books and the attitude of like wanting to learn and failing and wanting to figure out. But I go, the biggest thing that moves you ahead is a coach. You
yeah.
have to have somebody that pushes you to be accountable to things and to not
Hmm.
just wallow in your own pity and quit. Like
Yeah.
it's because we want to quit
Every day.
yes. I'm
Every
like, you've got to
day.
have somebody that's like either sometimes they act as a therapist just to help you through your
Mhm.
personal stuff, and sometimes they
Exactly.
just like get you through the business struggle that you're having and what do you need to delegate and how do you need to set up this or that. And I'm like, a coach is going to be somebody that you're accountable to. And she was like, oh my gosh, I just never thought like I needed that. And I'm like, well, how are you going to grow if you don't have somebody constantly helping you? It's like, and so it was kind of like a little light bulb went off. I'm like, you have to have help.
Yeah. Right. And I always tell people because I hear so many people say like, oh, I did everything. I'm like, honestly, like, I'm not saying people don't work hard. Like you have to work hard. It doesn't matter. You could have 100 coaches. You could have a mom who takes care of your kids, which I was lucky to have. Like you could have but nobody does it alone. Like we're a communal
No.
society. And even if it's the person at Starbucks who knows your order and has it ready, so that you're not late for your first appointment, like whatever
Right.
it is, like every piece, like I'm like, it's so important. And that really is like for me what was important. I had him as like my business and also like I had no idea. I would open walls and I'm like,
Oh
I
shit.
just I'm like, something's leaking. How do I fix it? I came from commercial, and it's like if you have water in the lines, you're like, I guess I can't solder today. Not really, but like I'm just saying, like you didn't deal with like opening a wall and trying to fix a mess.
Something. Yeah, exactly.
Started from
It
scratch,
was
and
always new. Yeah, new construction
yeah,
and right.
and it wasn't always easy. And I'm sure, like I did some renovation, and I was like, that was like a different beast. But everybody's plumbing is different. Like
Mm-hmm.
commercial, you have like sort of like layout, you have blueprints. I
Yeah.
remember I would go into people's houses. I'm like, do you have blueprints? Like, I'm like, how am I
How do
supposed to know
I
which
know where
wall
it's
to cut up?
going?
How am I supposed to? So, like, even that, like, having people to like, when you like a phone a friend.
Yeah, when you
Um,
don't know what to do, like that you have the support system, be like, hey,
yep.
how would you figure this out? Or what would you do? That's awesome. So tell me, like, so is your business now just mainly residential
Yeah.
plumbing jobs? Are you doing like remodels, new construction, or
Now,
just
so
repairs?
just I would say 90% is like service work. Every now and then someone is like flipping their bathroom and wants a plumber, like they have the contractor and I'll be their plumber. But it's really like and like I'll do larger jobs like stack replacements or I don't do too many dig ups, but I'll do dig ups where I'm changing people's like curb traps or like the underground plumbing.
Yeah.
But most of it is like, I need a new toilet, this is leaking, or and it seems to come in phases. And like I said, like especially with the COVID thing, it was like drain cleaning. And then I become this expert drain cleaner. And now I have to figure out like the best way to take out corroded faucets because everyone's getting a new faucet. And so it was like a great learning experience for me. I really like, I can't say how lucky that this path has been. Like, first, I have my dad that I can phone because he wasn't a residential plumber, but he was always like the church plumber, the
Yeah.
neighborhood plumber, helping people out plumber, the one not getting paid usually.
Right.
Um, so so I always had him to call. I had Chris to call, who was my mentor, and I would just call him. I'm like, I'm under a sink, and I just and he's like, step back. He's like, take a deep breath, eat an apple, take a sip of water, and then I would do that, and then I'm like, oh, I remember one time I did this, and then you just sort of
Work it
figure
out.
things out.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's been a really cool journey for
That's
me. But
amazing.
yeah, all residential. I don't even really want to expand, just because I don't like managing or businessing. So the idea of like hiring people,
It's not your
I don't
jam.
really, yeah. So,
Well, I
but
think
I
that's
do
like,
like, yeah.
I
So I
love
like
it
the
when
space.
people know their lane and their boundaries and like what's healthy for them and what works for them and what their idea of success is. And it's like, I'm busy, I have enough financial means to live the life I want. I'm not stressed out. I don't have to
Yeah,
manage people. And I so appreciate when people that know where they're supposed to be stay where they're supposed to be and just like do that well. Like my dad was just an incredible CPA and accountant, and he like didn't want to manage anyone, and he just worked really, really hard. And he just knew, he's like, that's not my gift, it's like, and I just struggle and people quit because I'm, not
yeah,
great at managing. And I'm like, I love it, like I love that
right,
people just are able to stay and do what works for them, because like success doesn't have to look like everybody else's. Like to me, it's like
exactly, yeah,
what does it look like and what does it define for you? And does that mean like being able to pick your kids up or go on a hike and not work till 7 o'clock at night or not, have your own hours? Like I think it's awesome.
yeah. And I think the cool thing about, like, one thing I always say is like, I stopped saying never, because I said I will never own a business. I used to say that. The guys would be like, you're a woman, minority, you could get the minority stuff, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I will never. I used to say that. I will, like, just like that. Like,
Yeah.
no. I like to do pipe. I like to not worry about liability, which
Yeah.
is my biggest hate, anybody's biggest hate, right? If you're a business owner. Because liability is scary, right? If you
Yeah,
could
especially
pin
with
it on
plumbing.
someone else, especially a multi-million-dollar company, like it's no big deal. There's a leak, not my problem. I'll fix the leak,
Right.
but
Not
I don't
taking
have to I don't
responsibility
have
for
to
the
pay for it.
damage. Yeah.
Yeah, so that was always, I would say never, never, never. And then now I own a business and I'm like, oh, silly me. And only what, 3 or 4 years ago. Like it's
Right.
not like it's 10 years. And then I started like, so now I do say like I don't want to expand or something, but my kids are in high school and I might get bored when they're 20,
Right.
right? So
Yeah.
maybe I do,
Yeah. Never say
my
never.
back hurts too much. I can't do that. And then managing a business or workers becomes more appealing. So I definitely like to keep my radar open, but
Yeah.
I'm not someone who's like hungry in the way that I'll say yes to every job.
Right.
Like, and like you said, like stay in your lane. Like I'm in my lane, I feel comfortable. I'll step out here and there, especially like with guidance, with a mentor, with someone who's done it before. And then, maybe one day I'll be, as big as Verizon. Probably not. And that's okay. But
Right.
like, I don't want to ever say like, no, I'll never have other
Yeah, I
trucks
think
on the
it's like
ground.
this season right now works for you, and that's great.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
so one last question. What what would you, is there any like, I don't know, advice or wisdom just for women, maybe younger girls out there that didn't think that somebody like you existed.
Yeah.
What would you, and but like working with their hands and figuring it out, because to me like plumbing is at least probably the kind of plumbing you're doing now is like problem solving and figuring it out. And when I was doing accounting and before I did construction, it was like I liked that part of my brain, like critical thinking and problem solving, and people just think like, oh my god, it's just math, and I'm like, no, it's actually problem solving, and like I like to solve
Yeah.
problems, and now that's what I do all day long. Is
Yeah.
solve people's problems. But I just didn't know if there was any, like, if you have this type of personality or you like doing these things, like this might be a really good fit for you, or any advice that you want to share.
I always say, always my biggest piece of advice is that and this is in general, not necessarily specific, it's not gender specific but like to newcomers in the trade, especially because like we already said, like the newcomers gets the brunt of like all of it, is that everything's temporary.
Right.
And this is like because this is what I have to tell myself, like when I'm holding a pipe that's spraying hot water in my face, is like, this is temporary. This is
Right.
temporary. There will be a time, I don't know when or how at the moment, but there will be a time that the hot water will not be spraying in my face. And also
Literally
like,
and figuratively.
yeah, but like to mainly take those moments where you really have to remind yourself that it's temporary. And I like to like put myself 10 years later where I'm laughing about that. So
Right.
like I like to put myself there then, like in the moment, so that way I know like this is going to be a good story later, or this is going to be the moment that gets me through the next hard moment.
Right.
Like
That's a
so that
beautiful mindset. I love that,
yes.
because I think so it's so easy to quit when things are hard and to just change your mind. And I think sometimes maybe a little bit of our youth is just like, oh, that's resistance, or that's hard work, or that wasn't just like flawlessly easy. And it's like everything is hard.
Yeah. And
And
I'm a
like,
quitter. Like I want, if I have hot water spraying me in the face, I'm like, I want to leave.
yeah,
Like
I'm out.
right.
Right.
But you can't. And that is what started getting me through it, because honestly, like when you don't have the liability on you, it's easy to just like walk away from situations. But when your name's on that, you can't. So
Yeah,
that's the one
exactly.
thing I would say to like newcomers, especially people who want to like go in the business side of things, is that like your name is everything.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then for like women, men, anyone wanting to work with your hands, there's like some sense of accomplishment, especially, I mean, for women, only because it's not as visible. Also, we're like, people don't really understand the amount of work it takes to like run a home for like stay-at-home moms.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that's one thing where like it's really sad that like a stay-at-home mom has such a difficult transition into our industry because there's no experience. But like, think about it. Like, I bet you a stay-at-home mom changes her trap more than her husband who works in an
Oh yeah.
office,
Oh, for
right?
sure.
Like, and she doesn't even realize she's doing plumbing. She's just like, it's full,
Yeah,
it's
need to
like
take care of the
broken.
stuff. Yeah.
Just so that's like one thing, is like all those skills transfer over. And it doesn't matter if you're a stay-at-home mom, stay-at-home dad, it's not a gender thing, but like it just is more commonly like it's more difficult for women who like stay home and have babies to like get out. And that's another problem, like, is childcare, because that's one thing that I still notice today. I always get the call from school. It doesn't matter if it's like his turn with the kids and it's his, half of the week. like they call me. I'm always and I'm like, I have hot water spraying me in the face. I can't answer. So, I mean, that's like a society's thing that needs to like sort of shift, but it is doable. I mean, that's where you really need to like have good community to like step in.
Yeah, to
And,
help you.
I have friends who will drive my kids to soccer if they need to go to soccer. I mean, and now having my own business, I just cater to myself so that I can cater to the kids, which is
Right.
really, really nice.
Absolutely.
But
I
yeah,
love that.
that's the big thing is like all that stuff transfers over, and girls don't, I mean, you can be the critical thinker and problem solve. The cool thing for me is I always thought I didn't like to do that. Like I only want to like mold things and build things, but like when I look back, I'm like, that's all I was doing is
Yeah,
problem solving. So that was the
absolutely.
cool thing, like, because it takes like the education, like, or schooling type thing out of it. Like, where if you're like, I don't like school, I don't like, you're still really doing all that, but you're doing it like in a
With your
physical,
hands. Yeah,
yeah. And then you
absolutely.
get to say, like, I built that. So I'm like,
Absolutely. That feels
and
so
that's
good.
the best that, I saw you smile. That's the best thing. You like always like, I drive past houses. I'm like,
I
I
did that.
worked there.
Yeah.
I did that. I did that. I did that. And my kids are like, we know.
Yeah. I'm aware. You've
Yeah.
said this before, mother.
So I'm
That's
like, just so you
awesome.
know, I built you as well.
Yeah.
So
Okay, well, Kelly, tell everyone where they can find you, follow you, hire you.
so mostly like chit chat, or if you want to really like get into my personality, is Tiny Plumber Girl on Instagram. TPG Mechanical on Instagram if you want to see like just
Building stuff.
not
Yeah.
see the inside of me, just see the out, my work.
Yeah.
And then I honestly don't have a website still. I'm like all word of mouth.
That's awesome.
So I can throw my phone number out there, but that's really what it is. Like people
That's
just call
amazing.
me, and that's where I've lucked out is like once you get in a community page, like, and they're like, this is the plumber, then I
Mm-hmm.
can't tell you. I work at one place and they're like, oh, we found you on West Philly House Fix. That's always like a very common one for me. Um, and then the next day I have like 15 calls. I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, they're like, oh, I'll advertise you. I'm like, I appreciate it. And you can. I said, but don't feel obligated because sometimes it's like overwhelming. Like I literally, they'll be, oh, someone just posted West Philly House Fix, and now I have like 7 calls. So
Wow.
which is awesome and speaks to me. Like if there's anything that's going to boost my ego, like that's
Yeah,
something.
being
But
recommended
also
on.
it keeps me accountable too, because if everybody's talking, like I can't, like you got to hold that up. Like once
Right.
you get a bad reputation, it's
Yeah.
hard to come back from. So you got to keep it good.
Absolutely. I love that. Well, Kelly, it's been such a pleasure to get to know
Thank
you and learn
you.
about your journey. It's amazing and inspiring. And I just so appreciate, taking the time to be able to talk to me today.
Thank you. Yeah, no, thank you for inviting me on here.
Of course. All right. Have an awesome day.
Thanks for joining me today on the She Build Show. My name is Stefanie Olson. My hope is that this episode leaves you feeling empowered and ready to boldly take that step into building the life that you envision, 1 2x4 at a time. And if you can do me a quick favor, please leave me a 5-star review on iTunes. I get giddy over reading the reviews each week, and I will choose one special person to win some She Build swag. Make sure you add your name to the review, and I'll reach out if you're the winner. Thanks again for hanging out. Be sure to visit me at theshebuildshow.com, where you can ask me questions and share with me what you're building.